Master of the Flying Guillotine is a cult 1975 martial arts flick directed by and starring classic kung fu's favorite problem child, Jimmy Wang Yu. It's actually a sequel to The One-Armed Boxer, a movie from a few years earlier also starring and directed by Yu, and is among the more beloved members of that first 70s wave of kung fu flicks to make it to America. I sometimes wonder if I overuse that term a bit on this channel, a cult film, but it's really not my fault if the shoe fits, and frankly, they don't come much cultier than this. It's a weird little thing, offbeat even by the standards of its time, with its eccentric characters, wuxia-style action, and maybe semi-legal soundtrack featuring the music of several experimental Western German rock bands of the 60s and 70s. No, I'm not kidding. It's weird. It's very strange, but you know what? It's also pretty goddamn good. Before we go any further, we have to briefly talk about the first movie. Without going into too much detail, the first film is a pretty standard hero loses, gets stronger, gets revenge tale. Tianlong, best boy at the local dojo and all-around decent fella, beats down a band of belligerent local gangsters who, for revenge, hire some brutal mercenary fighters to destroy the school he belonged to, kill his friends and master, and cripple him by disarmament. Among those mercenaries were a pair of Tibetan monks who are just two among a large and diverse cast of villains. That is, until the start of this movie. In a bit of fun plot backporting, we open on an old hermit receiving a message. Seems the monks from the first film feared they might end up getting jobbed out by Tian, and so they sent a message to their master, a retired Manchu assassin named Fengshang Wu Qi, played by Kang Chin. The monks request that their master avenge them should they die. Spoiler alert, they didn't win the fight. Enraged at this terrible crime, Wu Qi brings out his old weapon of mass murder, the titular Flying Guillotine, and what a wonderfully absurd little bit of action movie schlockery it is. At rest, it's basically a bladed hat on a chain, but the real magic happens when he lands it on someone's head, at which point it deploys into a sort of hood that, with a quick yank, can behead a man, which he demonstrates on a handy dummy and some poor random bird, the latter of which I am very much not going to show since I'm not entirely sure that wasn't a real bird. The 70s were a wild time, man. After destroying his Gondor beacon lighter's hut with some little bombs, our villain sets off on his quest, his only hint being that his target is a one-armed fighter of great skill. It's here that we first get Wu Chi's iconic theme music, a slow, harsh drum beat with a droning sort of background buzz that is actually genuinely menacing, selling the focused, almost Terminator-like determination of its associated do-batter. On the other hand, the opening credits are decidedly less moody, sounding liable to break out into surfer rock at any second. That particular example aside, the music in general tends to be very ambient, giving the movie a curiously foreboding atmosphere even during otherwise completely mundane scenes. The movie's got flavor to spare, I'll tell you that for free. Anyway, we finally join Tian living the good life in his dojo, teaching his students posture, balance, hilariously awkward looking wall running, even basic controls.
Today I'm going to teach you something new, the technique of jumping.
One student runs in bearing exciting news. Turns out the nearby Eagle Claw school is going to host a big old martial arts tournament, and in an apparently unusual twist, everyone is free to participate, regardless of style or territory. The students immediately start clamoring for Tian to enter, which Tian earnestly declines, and then this happens.
I think you should. I think you'd win every prize. 师傅，外面都久闻独臂拳王大名，你去露他一手，让他们开开眼界。
Am I having a stroke? Yeah, I gotta intrude with some real-world context here for a second. So, This movie, like most movies I cover lately, has a bit of a rough home release history. Different edits, different audio tracks, different visual qualities, the whole nine. A particular quirk of my copy that I had completely forgotten until I rewatched it for this video was that the audio track, due to being culled from multiple sources, will just sort of lapse into its original language from time to time. Same goes for the visuals. Sometimes the film goes from looking perfectly fine, if a bit washed out, to near strobe lighting between shots. Meanwhile, over at the registration area, a Thai boxer named Nine Men demands to be let into the tournament, but revolted by his nasty attitude and gross feat, the Eagle Master initially refuses, but eventually agrees to let him in if he displays enough fighting skill. And so Nine Men proceeds to just absolutely brutalize the other fighters, beating them like they owe him money. The choreography of the movie is pretty solid, buoyed by bursts of brazenly superhuman technique or combat flourish thanks to the magical realism endemic to these kinds of soft wuxia flicks. It's sometimes a little on the overly slow and telegraphed side, usually when the fight involves Jimmy himself, who, despite having excellent screen presence, was famously not a great martial artist, but when the fighting works, it sings. That particular mess over, the master's daughter, Wu Xiaoti, offers herself up for round 2. I love her introduction. She introduces herself like some sort of anime heroine before her father basically says, "No, daughter, don't. You suck." Which isn't really fair, since she acquits herself pretty well in her brief skirmish with the brutal Thai warrior, actually managing to land several blows before he inevitably starts to overwhelm her, leading Eagle Master to stop the fight and agree to let him into the tournament. We're briefly introduced to a couple of our other tournament participants, including a pensive-looking, what I'm assuming is supposed to be an Indian man, and a mysterious Japanese fighter, Wins Without a Knife Yakuma, and I wonder if that's his Christian name, or... Anyway, the mood immediately gets ominous with the arrival of Wu Chi. Yeah, remember him? As we watch him walk, and walk, and walk some more. Still walking. You know, there's giving a villain presence, and then there's just leaving the camera on and having lunch. Move faster! You're blind. Your legs work just fine. We get a rather drawn-out sequence of a one-armed vagrant eating food and killing some flies before he tries to get out of paying his bill by boasting that it is he who is the one-armed boxer, and look, you could probably see exactly where this is going. It's good to remind us of our looming threat, the decisive brutality of it all definitely making Wu Chi feel dangerous. Twitching corpse is a nice touch too, though it's hilariously obvious that that's just a dude with his head tucked into his shirt. Production-wise, this is 70s mid-budget kung fu-nery from stem to stern. Wonky props, bad prosthetics, a veritable buffet of goofy sound effects. Love the missile sound that plays when the guillotine is used. And the cherry on top, a cast of Hong Kong actors playing ethnically Asian characters at various levels of caricature, ranging from the mild to the troubling to loud sitar music plays whenever the Indian character enters a scene. The hell are you looking at me for? No, I wouldn't touch that shit with someone else's hands. Luckily, any complaints I have about the pacing or the production of the movie can sit right the hell down, since with the arrival of the much ballyhooed fight tournament, the movie kicks into high gear and sets off at a full gallop. So the next 20 minutes or so of the movie is just a series of relatively short fights, some of them involving main characters, some of them involving villains, some of them involving people who will only appear in these scenes and then just disappear from the movie. Still, most of them are worth talking about, if only for their entertainment value, so we're going to do a sort of lightning round to get through the chaff. Okay, first match, Long Spear Chang and Long Stick Ho, and La Crowing, what are you doing here? Look, I love you, but we got a double dose of your ass last time. I think we're good for a while. And holy shit, his opponent is Kwok Choi, the lizard himself, only a few years out from his big breakout in Five Deadly Venoms. the movie about which the first video ever posted to this channel was made, and boy was it terrible. Unlike this fight, which is actually really great. I don't need to glaze either of these guys. It's a fast-paced, well-shot little stick fight that, like all the best things in life, gets in and gets out in less than 30 seconds. Or so I've heard. The second fight is between Fast Sword Wang, wearing just the most incredible half a shirt this side of Provincetown, and our Japanese friend Yakuma. Always neat to see some Tonfa. How often do you see a good Tonfa fight, though? Shock of shocks, it turns out Yakuma did, in fact, win with a knife. I love how impressed Tien is by a strategy that basically amounted to lying on your name tag. It'd be like if I introduced myself as definitely not going to punch you in the face, David, only to, in fact, punch you in the face. So Yakuma wins, and I was right. I knew I recognized that mouth. Seriously? Master Pain.
From this day forward, you will all refer to me by the name Betty.
Sorry, Betty. I made one little Kung Pao reference during the last review, just one, and now all of a sudden we have Betty and Wimplo in the same scene 5 minutes apart. And let's not forget that after this, like a year later, Jimmy Wang Yu would direct and star in Tiger and Crane Fist, the movie that served as the foundation for Kung Pao Enter the Fist. I mean, shit, Jimmy is the character whose face they paste over with Steve Odekirk's face to make The Chosen One. And so the cycle continues. Okay, got kind of sidetracked with those two. Really gonna zoom through these next few. The next pair are Braided Hair Chung and the Mongolian. Imagine watching a bunch of matches with fighters with these cool weapon-based epithets, and then round 5 is between two dudes called Jufro and the Mexican. Kinda takes the wind out of the sails. Fight's not bad, at least. The Mongolian's grapple-based style is pretty distinct, and Sindel's braid attacks are fun, if predictable. Then there's the Eagle's Daughter versus Monkey Man. Always fun to see some monkey-style shenanigans, and while it's probably the least exciting fight, I can at least appreciate them letting the daughter have a well-fought win to make her not feel completely damseled out. Then there's the Javanese guy versus Slipknot over the sword pit. It's probably because of the added element of them having to balance, but the choreography feels weirdly choppy and slow here. What a waste of the man who can climb anything. Back in the land of plot-relevant fights, we finally get to see the Indian fighter in action, theme music and perilous makeup in tow. The fight itself is great, emphasizing the yogi's agility and large, sweeping strikes, a fighting style which makes even more sense after the reveal. And what reveal is that, you may ask? Yep. I mean, we saw a guy walk on a ceiling before, and they even foreshadow it at the start of the fight, but it's such a startling and dramatic escalation of the kind of reality-skirting combat we've been watching that it still catches one off guard when it happens. Also, shoutouts to this weirdly frightening insert shot of him coming at the screen with his hands. Shit actually made me jump the first time I watched this. Continuing our antagonist showcase is Tiger and Crane Lee versus 9 Men. Moving back to more standard hand-to-hand combat after the eccentricities of the past few rounds, it's a satisfyingly punchy and brutal fight, with the main focus seeming to be to make 9 Man even more unlikable by outing him as a little bitch who cheats when he's in actual danger in a fight, despite all his big, hey, I'm a tough fighter and I want to fight tough guys shtick he's had up until now. The last fight is between one-armed Snakefist Xian and Praying Mantis Tung, and I say last fight because, come on, you heard that first name. The fight is decent, if a little sloppy, but Snakefist's victory is short-lived because here comes number 1 amputee hater Wu Chi, and there goes Xian's head. Eagle Master is outraged at this interruption and Wu Chi's cold indifference to murder, and tries to fight him, including whipping out what appears to be Ivy's sword from Soul Calibur. I say try because Wu Chi disposes of him depressingly easily, even injuring his daughter in the process, before tossing more of those little bombs to cover his escape. Again, the movie does a good job of showing Wu Chi as this unstoppable, terrifying force of conscienceless death, completely indifferent to anyone caught in the crossfire on his quest for revenge. In the chaos of the explosions, we see someone run in and scoop up the Eagle's daughter. I should probably start calling her Wu. Anyway, someone grabs her from off the field and dashes. We'll come back to that. For now, we need Tien to explain what we already covered, that he fought and killed some murderous monks a ways back, and now their master is here for payback. We actually get what I assume is footage of the fight from the first movie. One monk seems to have used some sort of hole puncher technique, while the other one appears to have turned himself into a refrigerator, which is just the silliest damn thing you ever did see. Before he can explain further, he's interrupted by a horn-playing Nai Man, and yeah, I had neglected to mention it until now, but Nai Man engages in a literal song and dance before all of his fights, though this is the first time the music has actually been diegetic. Whether it's some spiritual thing, unlikely for someone as crass as him, or just for his own amusement, I don't know. Anyway, Nai Man taunts that he told Wu Qi where Tien is, revealing himself to be in cahoots with the old man. Indignant at his shittiness, Tien's, I guess, second, he calls him brother, but I think he means colloquially. Anyway, he tries to take on Nai Man, and bless him, he actually does pretty well, though he's already flagging by the time Wu Qi makes his dramatic entrance and starts tearing up the place. Tien orders the students to retreat before attempting to do so himself, getting wounded in the process. We then cut to Wu in a cave, wounds treated, before Betty reveals himself as her savior. Which is nice, but the scene gets real weird real quick. Betty declares that since he rescued Wu, she should give up on revenge for her father and her home, and basically her entire life, and just come back with him to Japan. Come to the homeland. I'll teach you my martial arts, and we'll live happily ever after. The whole scene and associated subplot is really weird, because it's like, oh, in the middle of all this high drama and action, yeah, let's just cut away to Incel Ninja and his weird crush on the female lead. I actually forget about it every time I watch this movie, which really isn't my fault considering that after this scene, with the exception of one more brief mention, none of this is going to matter for the rest of the movie. Anyway, back in the world where plot points matter, Tien has circled back to his dojo only to be accosted by the yogi, revealing himself to be another of Wu Chi's helpers, and oh god, the dub is going to give him an accent, isn't it?
The one-armed swordsman is just a one-winged chicken. Tell me, when would be convenient for you, huh?
Nah. After making shit personal by burning Tien's limited edition Guan Yu wall scroll, followed by throwing a whole-ass live owl at him, Yoga Man and Tien engage in one of the better fights in the movie, despite Jimmy's aforementioned limitations. The Yogi uses his stretchy powers in more aggressive and elaborate ways, like actual jabs and strikes instead of just wild swings, before going full-on long Dennis in the fight's climax. Tien, meanwhile, plays the range game, kinda hard with someone with that reach, but his keep away highlights his cleverness as much as his martial skill. Unfortunately, the highly snappable nature of long limbs proves to be Zappelli's downfall before he's finished off with the best Megaton punch this side of a Kirby minigame. Reuniting with his bro and Wu, Wu's here now by the way, the two decide to go into hiding until they can devise a better solution to their Wu Chi problem. Later, while relaxing by a river, Tien spots a nearby woodsman failing absolutely miserably to cut up some bamboo branches, and the gears slowly start to turn for Tien. And I do mean slowly. Molasses-ass gears turning at Mach -7. Better axe. What was even the direction for this scene? No, Larry, look at the axe like it confuses you. It scares you. Anyway, seeing the axe fail against the bamboo gives Tien an idea on how to handle Wu Chi. The next 5 minutes or so is a mostly wordless series of scenes where we see Tien visit various shops, collecting tools and setting traps, including rigging the hell out of a local coffin store. It's like an 80s building stuff montage minus the actual montaging, very avant-garde. I actually do find it pretty neat that instead of having Tien just work on punching harder to make up the difference between him and his opponents, they instead have him use tactics to even the playing field, something you don't get to see quote-unquote heroic characters do very often in these kinds of flicks. Before you can fight the Mad Monk, though, they have to get rid of that shitheel Nai Man. Luring him to an isolated cabin with his own theme music, the students lock him and Tien inside before setting fire to the foundation, superheating the iron plates coating the floor, which is especially troublesome for a certain barefoot TIE fighter. There's nothing wrong with the hand-to-hand here, obviously. If anything, the ticking clock of the burning building adds a layer of urgency and intensity to proceedings, but this whole setup is definitely more about just watching the thoroughly unpleasant Naimen get what's coming to him. Once he's nice and toasted, Tien sends him on his way with another patented power fist. So at this point, you'd think, okay, time for the fated duel between Wu Qi and Tien, right? Well, remember Betty? Don't worry if you didn't, I'm pretty sure the plot forgot him too. We've caught some glimpses of him at the periphery of some scenes, but for the most part, he's contributed fuck all to the story. Until now, where the movie suddenly realizes they should probably resolve his subplot and has his ass just pop up out of nowhere to fight Tien, ostensibly for the right to keep Miss Wu, which, sure, okay, let's go with that. It's a pretty decent little bout. Again, Tanfa are just a cool pull for a fight scene, and Lung Fei, despite all my Kung Pao based teasing throughout this video, is a really good screen fighter and knows how to sell even somewhat more listless choreography. But finally, with all the underlings and assorted distractions out of the way, it's time for the final round, the great hero versus the seemingly unstoppable killer monk. Will Tien manage to avoid the grasp of the Flying Guillotine, or will his head become just another adornment on Wu Qi's mountainous pile of victims? Well, I guess you'd better watch the movie, shouldn't you? Channel rules, friends, no spoilers for the final fight scene. And boy, is it a hell of a climax. Less a one-on-one fight in the traditional sense and more of a epic battle stretched out over multiple arenas as the two try to both outfight and outfox each other, culminating in a grand finale so gleefully extra I was tempted to just show you anyway, but I'll just settle for showing you this instead. My ass had to rewind this scene twice because I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. But yeah, while trying to locate an in-hiding Tien, Wu Qi just spins his head all the way around. An ability he was not hinted to have at all at any other point in the movie. I mean, once the Indian guy stretched his arms, I should have assumed all bets are off, but still, that's a hell of a thing to have your villain just whip out in the last fight, do once, and move on without further comment. I usually like to keep these kung fu movie reviews a little bit on the short side. After all, there's only so much you could say about an hour-and-a-half long movie before you're eventually reduced to just repeating over and over again, hey, that fight? Some good shit. But Master of the Flying Guillotine is such a gleefully gonzo, wackadoo slapfest that it feels like literally every scene had something interesting or fun to talk about. This script was actually like, I think 2 pages longer before I cut it down. It's that fun. Its fights, while not always the most cleanly executed, are always interesting to watch. Its cast of characters is fun and iconic, so much so that they've become archetypes themselves in other media like cartoons and video games. Combine all that with its truly bizarre tone and more wagadoo moments, and you could see how it has remained an awesomely silly genre standard for more than 50 years now. Even if you don't typically go for the more fanciful stuff, it's such an entertaining and energetic watch that I honestly can't see any kind of fight fan not finding something to enjoy. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this at all, then maybe drop a like or subscribe or do the share thing. I don't know, really whatever you do helps. It all is incredibly appreciated for helping the channel grow even just a little bit. And with that, I'll see you all next time.